you so much. Whoa. Thank you. Wow. I'll tell you what. Blake told me that he might in the future be interested in politics for himself, and I think he just proved that that would be a good choice. I'm very excited to be back here at MCC. I've been on this campus before when I was your senator, and I did get an invitation from the student government to come back to MCC, and as soon as I got it, I said, that's where I want to go, and I am thrilled to be with you today. I also want to thank your mayor, lovely Warren, a mayor of Rochester, Assemblyman, the majority leader in the Assembly, Joe Morelli, and the one and only and irreplaceable Louise Slaughter. You know, I was backstage, I was listening to Louise, and it just really made me smile. That is the most extraordinary public servant. She has been fighting for you. Her tenacity is second to none. She gets up every day doing battle with anybody who she thinks would hurt her constituents, this state, or our country. I have the highest admiration for Louise, and I know that you will return her to Congress in November to continue the fight. I am happy to be back in the Rochester area because this is a place that I grew to admire and have such affection for during my time as your senator. What a storied history, but more importantly, what an exciting future. There is a lot going on now in Rochester, and we've got to keep it going. You've got two of the greatest universities in the entire world right here in Rochester. And I was honored to work with both of them. At the University of Rochester, we tackled a lot of issues. And I've thought a lot about the meetings that I had and the work that I did with the University of Rochester in recent months, because one of the places you can count on to give you good advice about the intersection between the law and health is the University of Rochester. A great medical school, a great law school, and I remember very well a meeting we had about the work that the university has done for years, tracking the effects of lead poisoning on children. In fact, I teamed up with then the senator from Illinois, Barack Obama, to present legislation to do more to get lead out of the water, out of the soil, out of the chipped paint, because the University of Rochester had proven indisputably how toxic that was to the brains of little children. And when I went to bat for the people of Flint, when we found out they'd been poisoned for more than a year because of the indifference and negligence of their state government, I fell back on and relied on what I had learned from the University of Rochester. So I salute the University of Rochester and its great faculty and student body. And Rochester Institute of Technology, another great higher education institution that has so much to contribute. I was honored to visit the campus to talk about the plans that RIT had for moving manufacturing into the 21st century. I was absolutely privileged to work with Dr. Nabil Nasser and others at the university to secure $5 million for the Center for Integrated Manufacturing Studies. It now is one of the most highly regarded centers, really trying to figure out how do we get jobs back in manufacturing, how do we prepare people for advanced manufacturing, how do we get back to the point where we can say, yes, we can make it in America. And what's happening at RIT is leading the way. So I learned a lot when the people of New York took a chance on me when I was running for the Senate back in 2000, and it was the greatest honor that I can imagine to serve this state for 8 years and to have a chance to learn so much and meet such extraordinary people from all walks of life. I also had some great experiences working with Food Link to try to figure out how to deliver more food to hungry people, working with the vineyards and the farmers who are producing great food and wine right here in the greater Rochester and Finger Lakes region. So much that we can do together, that when I started this campaign for president, my goal was to figure out how, working together, we could form the kind of partnerships, the collaboration that will make us richer and safer and stronger and fairer as we move forward. And I think that as you make your minds up about the primary on April 19th, the general election in the fall, there are really 3 tests that you should hold anybody running for president up to. Can they meet these tests? The first one is, can you actually produce positive differences, get results for people that make their lives better? Because if you can't do that, then you got to think twice about giving the most important job, not just in our country, but in the world, to somebody who can't produce those results. And it's important to know what people have done in order to figure out what they will do. Louise told you some of the things she and I worked on. I believe public service is about service, giving people the opportunity to make the most out of their own lives. And nothing is more important to make the economy work for everybody again. More good jobs with rising incomes. And so how do we do that? Well, we have to have a plan. I was just in Buffalo. I worked on a plan with the people in Buffalo all those years ago when I was starting out as a senator to use healthcare and the medical school and the University of Buffalo supercomputer to form a core to create the medical campus that is there now. It took years. It now has produced 12,000 more jobs, more than 100 new businesses. That's exactly what we need to do in Rochester, across upstate, and across America. So here's my plans. I think there are a number of things if we invest in, we will actually produce results in a better economy. Number one, we are going to invest more in infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our ports, our airports. Those are good jobs, from engineering and designing to construction work. Those are jobs that can't be exported. But it's not just what you can see that we need to build and maintain. It's what you can't see. It's those water systems, the sewer systems, the leaking pipelines. And let's finally provide high-speed internet at an affordable cost to every single person in this state and America. It's pretty hard. If you're in an inner city or a rural area, it's pretty hard to compete in the global economy if you don't have access to that. And there's still too many places in America that don't. When I was your senator, I worked to bring broadband to the North Country up in the Adirondacks because they were cut off from the larger economy. Well, if I'm fortunate enough to be your president, we're going to finish that job and we're going to keep improving it. We're going to increase the speed and lower the cost. It is outrageous that Americans pay more for our internet connectivity than people in most advanced economies. And it does happen to be the truth that the United States did invent the internet. So why aren't Americans getting the best deals on it? We're going to change the way it works, and we're going to finish making sure everybody is connected. Number two, I believe there can be a renaissance in manufacturing. I believe the kind of advanced manufacturing that is being pioneered at RIT and other great institutions in our country can spark that renaissance. And I have set forth a $10 billion plan that I introduced in Syracuse last week about how exactly I would do it. We're going to change the tax incentives so that people get incentives for actually bringing manufacturing jobs here, not exporting them out of our country. And I have seen the future because I've been in enough of the great community colleges, universities, technical institutes. This is within our reach. But we've got to have a plan, and we've got to be committed to it. And we have to put together the collaboration between all levels of government, the private sector, academia, philanthropy, everybody pulling in the same direction. But make no mistake about it, we have all the assets we need. We just have to make sure we're organized to produce the results that we want to see. And one of the greatest opportunities for advanced manufacturing is in our commitment to combat climate change and move toward clean, renewable energy. Now, I care passionately about this because I worked on this when I was your senator, and then when I became Secretary of State, I got to work with President Obama and others to see what we could do to push forth a global agenda. And I was very proud when, under American leadership, 195 countries agreed in Paris to do something that just a few years before they were not interested in at all, to control their own greenhouse gas emissions, to work across national borders, to deal with the most endangered places like small island nations and coastal areas. But this is not a problem just for people way out somewhere else. We are now seeing the results of it in our own country. I just spent a lot of time down in Florida, in the primary down in Florida, which came out exactly the right way, I might add. But while I was there, because if you look at any map of the effects of climate change in America, Florida is like a big red flashing light. They are having sunny day flooding. They are having wells in Central Florida being polluted with seawater and other contaminants. They're living it. So our job is to act like Americans, roll up our sleeves, get to work, and lead the world in combating climate change and mitigating the effects. And I've set some big goals. I've said we need a North American climate compact because we do need to work with Canada and Mexico because we have a lot that we can perhaps cooperate and partner on. We're going to need a new electric grid. We're going to need to figure out how we distribute and deliver wind energy and solar energy. We're going to have to really take energy efficiency seriously. And I'd like us to deploy 500 million more solar panels by the end of my first term and enough clean energy to power every home in America by the end of my second term. Now, some nation is going to end up being the clean energy superpower of the 21st century. I think it's going to be, based on what's happening right now, either China or Germany or us. I want it to be us. And if we do what we should, it will be us. Now think for a minute about what the Republicans have to say. Well, that is the right response, I have to admit. You know, when they're asked about climate change, they all say, well, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. And I keep saying around the country, well, then go talk to a scientist. And, you know, University of Rochester, RIT, MCC, there are plenty of people who can explain climate change to you. But it's not just the denial and doing the bidding of the Koch brothers that bothers me. It is their total missing of the economic opportunities this provides. Because these also are jobs that can't be exported. These are jobs that have to be done in America. And a lot of them would be good union jobs with good pay for a middle-class life for hardworking Americans. So if you take infrastructure, you take manufacturing, you take clean renewable energy, we have the beginning of an economic opportunity that will revolutionize jobs and rising incomes and be able to spread from cities to rural areas because there's a role for everybody to play. I also think it's important we do more to support small business because that's where 75% of the jobs are going to come from. And I'll tell you who I really want to concentrate on. I want to concentrate on helping young people be able to start their businesses. Today in Buffalo at the medical campus, I met a young University of Buffalo graduate who is starting his own business, a young entrepreneur on the campus, working with the innovative labs that are there. And he asked me, he said, you know, I feel very lucky to be here, but not everybody gets this chance. What more can you do? I said, well, I want to open up opportunities for small business, and I want to focus on young people and minority and women-owned small businesses because they are often not given the same opportunities, and we need to give everybody a chance to start that business. I want to be a good small business president. Now, in addition to growing the economy, we also have to make it fairer. I was very proud of New York when it voted just last week to raise the minimum wage in this state. I was honored to be with Governor Cuomo in New York City while he signed that bill, and I want to do everything I can to make sure it works and raise it at the national level. And the other way, the fastest way to raise incomes, besides raising the minimum wage, is finally guaranteeing that women get equal pay for the work we do. Now, I have to tell you, this is not just a woman's issue, although of course it is. This is a family issue. If you have a mother, a wife, a daughter, a sister who is working and not being treated fairly in her workplace, she doesn't get a discount because of that. You know, last time I checked, you go to the supermarket, you're standing in the line, and the cashier doesn't look at you and say, well, you're a white woman, so you only have to pay 78 cents on the dollar. Or you're an African-American woman, you only have to pay 68 cents on the dollar. Or you're a Latino woman, you only have to pay 58 cents on the dollar. There is no gender discount. And the more we can make pay fair, the more family income will rise. And the more that will stimulate the economy because we are a 70% consumption economy. So we want to grow the economy, give the vast majority of Americans a raise because most Americans haven't had a real raise in 15 years. Now, I am looking forward, if I'm the nominee, to debate whoever the Republicans put up. And one of the things that I will take great delight in saying is that our economy does better when we have a Democrat in the White House. And obviously, I sure hope we do come January 20th of 2017. But what's most important and what I want you to understand is that when I was your senator for 8 years, I spent the bulk of my time trying to figure out how we could bring more jobs to Rochester, to Buffalo, to upstate New York. And there was a lot of incredible effort that people were putting into that. And I'm beginning to really see the results. You know, that's what Louise Slaughter does every single day. She stands up for you, she fights for you, she argues against the forces that would set us back. But we've got to build on the progress that President Obama made. Because look at this. When my husband was president, we got 23 million new jobs and incomes went up for everybody, not just rich people, everybody, middle class, working, poor people. We lifted more people out of poverty than at any time in recent history. And so we were on the right track. But as Louise will tell you, because I joined the Senate in 2001, the Republicans came in and just dismantled everything that had been constructed to keep the economy going well for folks, hardworking folks. They cut taxes on the wealthy. They took their eyes off the financial and mortgage markets, and you know what happened. So when Barack Obama got elected president, he inherited this big mess from the Republicans. You know, I went to see him. He asked to see me right after the election. I didn't know why. It turned out he wanted to ask me to be Secretary of State, but before we got to that, he just looked at me and he said, "It is so much worse than they told us." And it was. 800,000 people a month were losing their jobs. 9 million Americans lost their jobs because of that Great Recession. 5 million homes were lost, and $13 trillion in family wealth was wiped out. And I don't think that President Obama gets the credit he deserves for digging us out of the ditch that the Republicans put us into. So I don't want to go back. I want to build on the progress, but take it much further, which is why I've laid out all these plans about how we can create more jobs and increase incomes. And we also have to pay attention to education, because education is still the passport to a better life. And let's start with early childhood education and universal pre-kindergarten. And let's work with our teachers in elementary and secondary school. Let's give them the support they deserve to do the difficult job that they have signed up for. And then let's make sure everybody can afford to go to college again. I have a plan for debt-free tuition. You will not have to borrow a penny to be able to go to a public college or university. But as Louise said, I am not going to pay for Donald Trump's kids or grandkids. We are going to pay for middle-class families' kids and working families' kids and poor families' kids. And we're also going to give you the opportunity to pay down that student debt, to get it under control. Because right now, you can refinance your mortgage, you can refinance your car payment, and you can't refinance your student debt. So we're going to give you the opportunity to refinance your student debt. We're going to put a date certain for your obligations to end. If you've been paying monthly, after 20 years, it's over. We're going to have more public service options, national service options that will give you a chance to really afford to go to college or maybe continue your education afterwards. This is one of the biggest deals to me, because we have made it increasingly difficult for kids from middle class and working and poor families to be able to start college, be able to continue it, and be able to graduate. And I'm going to reverse that, because I remember when I went to college and law school, I borrowed money, but I had the opportunity of paying it back as a percentage of my income. So when I went to work for the Children's Defense Fund, making about $14,000 a year, I could afford to do it because I was paying it back as a percentage of that. And after about 15 or so years, I finished paying it back because it wasn't the kind of burden that so many young people today and their families are bearing. I want to lift that burden because that will get you more active in the economy. You'll have more resources to spend for your own future, your own lives. And I will also defend the Affordable Care Act, which has been a great source of not only medical care, but relief, gratitude for the 20 million people who are now signed up. We are at 90% universal coverage. And I know how hard that was because before there was something called Obamacare, there was something called Hillary Care. And I took on the insurance companies and the drug companies, you know. It was hard, I'll tell you that. So when we weren't successful, I turned around, I worked with both Democrats and Republicans to create the Children's Health Insurance Program. And we now insure 8 million kids. So we made a little progress. But that's why I was so happy when the president signed that bill. Now, the Republicans keep trying to repeal it, and they won't tell you what they'll replace it with because they know you won't like it. Everybody who's here, who's on your parents' policy until the age of 26, that's because of the Affordable Care Act. Anybody who has a pre-existing condition but who now can get affordable insurance, that's because of the Affordable Care Act. And for the first time, women pay the same rates as men for our health insurance. So yes, we have to improve it. We have to get the costs down, and we have to tackle prescription drug costs, which are skyrocketing and have to be reined in. So there's a lot to be done. And the reason I go into detail to tell you about what I want to do is because I want you to understand. You're basically conducting a job interview. You're hiring a president through your votes. And you deserve to know what each of us has done and what we are telling you we can do and whether or not that's realistic. I also want you to know that when it comes to our rights, the Republicans seem to be in lockstep about trying to undermine our rights. And I want you to know where I stand. I support a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. And I will defend Planned Parenthood against these partisan attacks. I will also defend marriage equality. And I will work to end discrimination against the LGBT community anywhere in America. I will also defend voting rights, which are under attack. In so many states, there is just a concerted effort to try to turn the clock back. Back before the 1960s, before the Voting Rights Act. I'll tell you a quick story. I run into all these people who tell me how difficult it's been for them or someone they know to register and vote these days. I ran into a 100-year-old woman in South Carolina. And she said she had gone to register to vote. And they said, well, where's your photo ID? She said, well, I don't have a photo ID. So they said, well, you don't have a driver's license? She said, I'm 100 years old. So then they asked her, they said, well, do you have a birth certificate? She said, I haven't seen my birth certificate in 50 years. I said, but I've lived here all my life and I want to vote. This is deliberately designed to restrict the electorate, which is yet another motivation for all of you to be sure to go out and vote every time you can to send a message. I will also work to appoint Supreme Court justices to overturn Citizens United. Which is another reason why we should all support President Obama's nomination to the Supreme Court under the Constitution. I will continue to work for comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship so that we can deal with the reality of 11 or 12 million people in this country. You know, look, you can say anything in politics, and, you know, Trump and Cruz have said anything in politics. But, you know, building the wall and having Mexico pay for it is like a Saturday Night Live skit. And I will also continue to fight the gun lobby for common sense gun safety measures. You know, 33,000 people a year die from gun violence in America. That's on average 90 people a day. Now, I believe that we're a pretty smart country, and we can do things that will save lives. Maybe we can't save every life, I'm not promising that. But we can certainly keep guns out of the hands of more people who shouldn't have them. And have comprehensive background checks, close the gun show loophole, close the online loophole, close what's called the Charleston loophole, and end the immunity given to gun makers and sellers against any liability. I feel passionately about this because ever since I was First Lady, I have met with so many families of people who were murdered. Columbine High School, the Aurora movie theater in Colorado, Sandy Hook, the 20 children and 6 educators murdered, Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston. It's hard. And they ask you questions like, why did this happen? Well, it happened because people in public life won't stand up to the gun lobby and make some tough decisions. You know, this is a big issue for so many people across the country. In fact, everything I just told you about what I would like to do is supported by 90% of Americans and 80% of gun owners. So, you know, responsible gun owners are not worried, but people who get wrought up by the gun lobby worry a lot and get nervous. You know, we have to convince them that nobody's coming for their gun, but we've got to stop people, and I'll give you a perfect example. You know, my opponent, Senator Sanders, we have a big disagreement on this. He voted against the Brady bill 5 times. He voted for a limited period for the background check. It ended up being 3 business days. The killer in Charleston went to buy that gun, and they were conducting a background check on him, but they didn't finish it. He came back at the end of 3 days. He was entitled to get his gun. Within 24 hours, they found out he shouldn't have gotten a gun because he had a record. He took that gun. He went to that church. He was motivated by white supremacy and racism and hatred. He went to that church on a Wednesday when Bible study was going on. He actually went into the Bible study, and the people there welcomed him. They thought it was part of their faith, a stranger in their midst. They invited him to come in and sit down. And he listened to the Bible study for an hour, and then he pulled out the gun and murdered 9 people. You just have to say to yourself, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way to keep guns away from people like that, and also to keep them away from domestic abusers until they calm down and don't want to injure somebody. You know, I hope that we're able to reach consensus on this and to support elected officials who, like they did back in the 90s, voted for common sense reforms. So we have to listen carefully to what you hear the Republicans saying. You know, Donald Trump has been a real flamboyant, speech-making, inciting candidate. But make no mistake, a lot of what he's saying, even though he says it in a more dramatic way, is what the Republicans believe. You know, if you're going to make abortion illegal, you're going to make doctors and women criminals. And what he backed up from was just to say, well, no, we wouldn't punish people. But watch what's happening around the country with Republican governors and Republican legislatures. So you have to take these pronouncements seriously, and that is also true for the second test. Can this person keep us safe and lead our country around the world? And a lot of what we're hearing is not reassuring. It is a kind of amateur hour where they say whatever pops into their minds. Let's pull out of NATO. Let's let Japan and South Korea develop nuclear weapons. You sit there and you think, okay, and then what happens next? So think hard about this, because you're voting not just for a president, but also a commander-in-chief. And you've got to be... You've got to be thinking about how we stay safe. And I just want to make 2 points. One, when Donald Trump said, keep Muslims out of the United States, that was not only offensive, it was dangerous. Because we're going to defeat ISIS in part by having a coalition of nations, including Muslim nations. And when Ted Cruz said, let's religiously profile American Muslims and have special police patrols in their neighborhoods, well, first of all, I don't even know how you do that. I don't think it's on street signs. I don't understand how you do that. But that's also dangerous. After 9/11, what we did very effectively in New York, and Louise remembers this, is we closed ranks. We asked everybody, if you see something suspicious, you hear something suspicious, report it. And the New York Police Department got a lot of reports. And they followed up on them. A lot of them didn't pan out, but some of them did. We need everybody to feel like they are helping to defend America. We do not want to isolate people, scapegoat people, prejudge people. I want everybody to be part of the early warning signal that will keep us safe, will thwart attackers, will identify people being radicalized before they can act. So think carefully when you hear some of what the Republicans are saying. You know, I was part of the most significant counterterrorism operation in recent history, the operation to go after bin Laden. And I felt very strongly about it. If we could, if the intelligence was good enough, then we should act. And I advised the president to that effect. But it was up to him to make the decision, and I was very gratified when he did decide to go. And we did bring bin Laden to justice and send a message that if you hurt and murder Americans, we will never give up trying to bring you to justice either. Now, the third big test is, can you unify our country? And in some ways, this may be the hardest test because, boy, are we having a lot of divisiveness going on. People saying terrible things about whole groups of Americans, whole groups of people, setting us against each other. That's not how we are going to seize the future and shape it to our advantage. We have to bring people together, use the talents of everybody, create opportunities for everyone, knock down all the barriers that stand in the way. And I want you to know this. I will go anywhere, anytime to meet with anyone to find common ground. I did it as First Lady. I did it as a senator. I did it as Secretary of State. I will also stand my ground on your behalf because we have to balance the two. But it's imperative that we once again start working together. You know, when I became a senator, I worked probably with every Republican in the Senate. I might have only agreed with them on one or two things, but finding that common ground enabled us to make progress for the people I represented and for the country. That's what we need to do again. When I think about this upcoming primary election, everything that I hope to be able to do on your behalf, all the lessons that I've learned serving as your senator, serving as Secretary of State, putting them to work to make our country strong, to give the economy the boost that it needs, to protect the rights of every American, to lead advancing our values around the world. I can't do that without your help. I'm asking you to support me on April 19th in the New York primary. And I want you to know that I will do everything I can to give every child in this country, every person in this country, the opportunity to live up to his or her potential. Create those ladders of opportunity again. Make the American dream and promise real. I have an 18-month-old grandchild now, and I am head over heels in love. And Bill and I will do anything we can to give her every opportunity that she can possibly take advantage of. But that is not enough. It matters what kind of country she grows up in. Are we coming together or falling apart? Are we growing and being fairer, or are we limiting the opportunities to a very select few? It matters what kind of America she will become an adult in, just like it matters what kind of world will be out there waiting for her. And as far as I'm concerned, every opportunity that my grandchild has should be available to every child and every grandchild in Rochester, in New York, and across the United States. If you will support me, I will work as hard as I can. I will fight for you. I will deliver results for you. And we will go into a future where America's best years are still ahead of us. Thank you all so much.